All right, to summarize everything so far that we've talked about under the rubric of epistemology. If this analysis is correct, then as educators, part of our educational mission has an epistemological component. And so I'll put it in the form this way: our epistemological mission as teachers. This can be formalized in our mission statement, if we're constructing one, is to educate students in the skills of reason, by which we mean careful observation skills, classification and definition, proposition formation, grammar, then logic and rhetoric. The idea being that, to use the Semmelweis as a working example, all of these were the things that Semmelweis had to be proficient at to be able to do what he did, or in the case of Shakespeare, that Shakespeare had to be proficient at all of these things to be able to do the kinds of things that he did as well. And then also, as we use Semmelweis and Shakespeare as working examples here, that as well as teaching all of these particular skills, that there are various epistemological virtues, right, that go along with that. A certain openness to new data, to new ideas, and so forth. Certainly Semmelweis, for his ability to go through the number of hypotheses that he did, he had to be open to new data, and initially to recognize that there was a problem, he had to be open to having that idea come to him that there was something that needed to be attended to here. There has to be a certain creativity necessary. Obviously, in the Shakespearean example, a creativity in being able to play with around with language in a sophisticated way to develop the poetic lines that he did. Semmelweis in coming up increasingly with hypotheses to explain the data. A certain commitment to objectivity in the case of Semmelweis, when the data was going against him, when he ran a certain set of experiments and he did not get the predicted results that he wanted to recognize that the data was going against him and then to start out over again. Or in the case of working through the metaphorical interpretations in the case of Shakespeare, if the interpretation doesn't work with the text, there are things that militate against it, then objectivity requires that we be able to change our minds and try another hypothesis as well. To be able to take failure and criticism, right, and not to give up, and to as a result of that to persevere. In the case of I'm a student, I come up with a hypothesis, I try, but when I'm a student, my first hypothesis is not very good. How do you as a teacher point out to me that that is a failure, but criticize me in a constructive fashion so that I learn that failure is going to happen, but nonetheless, if I persevere, I will eventually come up with a legitimate interpretation that works. Or in the case of Semmelweis, lots of self-criticism, no doubt, and lots of failure as he burned through several hypotheses here, but nonetheless, he committed and persevered. So our epistemological mission then as teachers is already complicated enough. We have to ourselves know how to do all of these things fairly well, and not just be able to do them, but be able to conceptualize them ourselves in a way that we can explain them to other students and build them into our lesson plans patiently over a long period of time so that they themselves can do so. So all of those skills we have to know how to do ourselves proficiently, but also we have to attend to all of these traits. How do we, if we want students to be powerful reasoners, right, by the time they are adults, have all of these traits of openness and objectivity and being able to take criticism and the perseverance that is necessary to solve the kinds of difficult issues and problems that we face as adults.